Hi friends! We're going to read a book today about a family who had a big building project at their house. This is the book, The Big Concrete Lorry by Shirley Hughes. Shirley Hughes is the same lady who drew the pictures and wrote the story for all those books about Alfie that we read. Alfie is not in this book, but it's written by the same lady, and she also did the pictures. The Big Concrete Lorry. A lorry is a truck. This book was written in England, and in England sometimes they say lorry instead of truck. So a concrete lorry is a cement mixer, as you see, and here's the family. Here we go. The Big Concrete Lorry by Shirley Hughes, and I'm going to put this book right here. Okay. The Patterson family lived at number 26 Trotter Street. There was Mom, Dad, Josie, Harvey, and little Pete. Also Murdoch, their dog. Their house had a patch of garden at the back with a flower bed, a washing line, an apple tree. In front, there was only just room between the house and the street for some flower pots and a couple of dustbins. Dustbins are trash cans. Let's look at this house for a minute. This is not like our houses. This is the Pattersons' house right here. And I don't know if you can see the kids. And this would be the neighbor's house, and then the next neighbor, and they have a neighbor over here. So all the houses are attached together. So if you were at the front of the house and you want to play in the backyard, you can't go around the side of the house. You would have to go in the front door and come through the house into the back. So that's something different. Josie had a room of her own. It was jam-packed with her things. Harvey and little Pete shared the back bedroom. It was jam-packed with their things. Murdoch had a basket in the kitchen, but often, though he wasn't supposed to, he slept at the bottom of Harvey's bed. Murdoch was a roly-poly dog who fitted nicely under Harvey's feet, like a plump hot water bottle. The Pattersons' hall, here's the hall. The Pattersons' hall was full of coats, boots, skateboards, and buggies. The family living room was very often full of Pattersons. Sometimes, when Josie was doing her homework at one end of the table, and Mom was cutting out a blouse to sew at the other end, and Dad was eating his supper in front of the television, and little Pete was playing with his toy cars, and Harvey and Murdoch were flopping all about over the sofa, it seemed as though the room was so full it would burst. "We must have more space," moaned Mom. "We could move to a bigger house," said Dad. "If only big houses weren't so expensive." All the family said they couldn't possibly move to a new house. They loved Trotter Street far too much. Then Dad had a good idea. "We could build an extension," he cried. Harvey wanted to know what an extension was. Dad explained that it was an extra room at the back, just like the one Mr. Lau had built next door. Mr. Lau's extension was full of beautiful pot plants and ornaments. Let's just look at the neighbor's house. We saw this already. So here's the Pattersons' house, and this is Mr. Lau's house. And see, he's put this extension sticking out on the back of his house so they have more space. Sometimes we don't say extension, we say we put an addition on the house. All the Pattersons thought that to have an extension like Mr. Lau's would be a very good idea. So Dad brought home some brochures showing pictures of splendid extensions with happy people looking out of them. I'll put it up myself, said Dad. Are you sure you can manage it? Mom asked anxiously. Dad said that Mr. Lau and his son Rajit and Frankie and May's dad from up the street had all promised to help him, so it would be all right. Next week, a delivery van drew up outside the Pattersons' house, and some men unloaded bits of wood and windows and doors and stacked them in the back garden. This was the extension, all in pieces. Now we need some bricks, said Dad. A few days later, another truck arrived. It had Jiffy Building Company written on it, and underneath, Joe and Jimmy Best. Load of bricks you ordered, said Jolly Joe Best, jumping down from the cab. Then he and Jimmy lowered the flap at the back of the truck and began unloading the bricks. They took them through the house and stacked them in the garden. After they had driven off, Harvey, Josie, and little Pete had a great time playing on the bricks, while Mum vacuumed away the dirty footprints left by Joe and Jimmy. Can you see Mum doing that job? The following morning, Dad got up very early and put on his old trousers, saying he was going to dig a foundation. Of course, Harvey wanted to know what a foundation was. Dad explained that it was a solid base for the extension walls to stand on. Mr. Lau came round after breakfast and helped Dad measure the space for the extension. They marked it out carefully with string pegged to the ground. See how they've done that here? The string. It'll make a line to show them where to dig. Then Dad, Mr. Lau, and Rajit, and Frankie and May's dad began to dig a trench following the line of the string. Little Pete thought all this was very interesting. He fetched his spade and began to dig too, and so did Murdoch. When the trench was finished, the men cleared the space where the floor was supposed to be, put down bits of brick and rubble, and covered them with a plastic sheet. Now, everything was ready for the cement. But first, an inspector came to look at it, to make sure it had all been done properly. Meanwhile, Josie and Harvey pretended that the extension was already built, and they were having lunch inside. Josie imagined it had pink wallpaper, and Harvey imagined there were curtains with a pattern of airplanes. Dad was so tired the next day that he didn't get up early. Mum took him a cup of tea in bed. While the rest of the family were having breakfast, they heard a great noise in the street. They all hurried outside. A truck had arrived at their house. It was huge. It had a big drum that turned slowly round and round. Crunk, crunk, crunk. On the side of the truck was written, Jiffy Ready Mix Cement Company. Out jumped Jolly Joe Best. Load of cement you ordered? He called cheerfully. Not this morning, Shirley, said Mom. I'm sure we didn't, but it was too late. Jimmy had already pulled a lever, and the big drum poured out a load of cement, all in a rush. Slop, slurp, dollop, splosh. Just like that. It landed in a shivering heap right outside the Pattersons' front door. Dad rushed downstairs, pulling on his trousers over his pajamas. We weren't expecting you today, he shouted. That's okay. Just sign here, said Joe, and he leapt back into his seat. It's quick setting, he called from the cab window. Be hard as a rock in a couple of hours. Better get busy. But we haven't, Dad called back. But Jimmy was already revving up the engine. The big cement mixer roared away up the street in a cloud of dust. Quick, cried Dad, picking up a shovel. Quick, shrieked Mom. searching for a spade. Grab those buckets. Fetch the wheelbarrow. Run for the neighbors. The quick-setting cement is soon going to set. Never had the Pattersons moved so fast. Mum began to shovel up the cement into the wheelbarrow and trundle it through the house, while Dad shoveled and smoothed it down over the foundation at the back. Josie and Harvey ran to fetch Mr. Lal and Rajit from next door, and Frankie and May's dad from up the street, and they all came running. The neighbors pitched in and shoveled and spread too. Josie, Harvey, and little Pete ran up and down with buckets. Murdoch joined in, barking loudly. Everyone labored and struggled and fell over one another's feet. They shoveled and heaved and trundled cement from the front of the house to the back, and steadily the heap on the pavement grew smaller and smaller. "Quick, it's beginning to set," shouted Mum. Everyone worked faster and faster. "Done at last," gasped Dad, throwing down his shovel and wiping his hands on his trousers. Then all the workers rested. The foundation was finished. Only a small hill of cement was left beside the front door. It had set so hard that nothing in the world would shift it. Look at this. Dad's still wearing his pajamas. Can you see that? The extension went up bit by bit. First, a low brick wall, then the roof, windows, and door. At last, the Patterson family were able to move in. And I noticed they do have pink walls, and they do have airplanes on the curtains. Look at how this is here. See, they set a low brick wall. Here are the bricks. So all along here would be bricks behind these people. And look what big windows. So it wasn't that many bricks. They were so pleased with their beautiful new extension that they gave a party for all their neighbors. Harvey and Pete were extra pleased with the small cement hill which stood outside the front door. None of their friends had one like it. It was great for sitting on and for racing toy cars down. And if you climbed up and stood on the top, you could see right to the very end of Trotter Street. The end.